This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned.
All right, where to start? Arkansas baseball loses
Go
another game yesterday,
Pascal.com.
but there's a series of. I mean, look, SEC teams lost yesterday. 6 SEC teams lost out of conference. Arkansas was the only one of those teams that lost in a road game, and a pretty good team as well. Now, there's that. But the injuries are the bigger story. It's not the loss. It's what Arkansas is doing without right now. And we still don't know how long they're going to be without him. And some of the guys that weren't on the lineup yesterday that we might see this weekend, well, they're dealing with some things too.
Yeah. And that's where I think that you kind of have to remind people to not hit the panic button and freak out and what's going on with Arkansas baseball. Because like you mentioned, Phil, a lot of teams lost yesterday. A lot of teams got swept over the weekend. And a lot of teams lost the midweek games earlier the following week. And so this is kind of that time of the year where almost everyone is dealing with something, whether that be injuries like Arkansas is or just maybe some fatigue or figuring things out still. And so I don't think this is a big issue as long as you obviously get it on the right track. And we all know Dave Van Horn. We need to trust Dave. He's been doing this for a really long time. He knows how to get teams back on track and kind of push the right buttons to get everything to work. You just have to kind of trust the process. And I know that's really hard for fans to understand and be patient with, and I get it. You know, no one likes to sit there and watch loss after loss and just be like, well, eventually they'll win. You love watching wins, but you also have to understand Arkansas baseball isn't anywhere close to being over for the season, and you got to remember and you look back on the way that Ole Miss was playing last year before they won a national title, the way that Mississippi State was playing the year before they won a national title. Teams go through lulls and are able to bounce back and turn things around. We're just in one of those valleys right now.
You want to play your home. You want to play at home in the postseason, if at all possible. Of course, they showed last year and they showed in 2015 that they can win a road regional, and last year won a road super regional. So it's not just doing it at home, but you want to play at home. And there's just so many slip-ups that you can have. And last week was a slip-up. I think Georgia's better than one that their record showed. And I think they showed it in how they beat Arkansas. But you really can't have too many weekends like that. No. And it's different. This is different from that 2018 season. Remember that, Alyssa? Arkansas lost all 5 road series in the league, but they swept 4 out of 5 at home. So there was more than enough to balance out the slip-ups. I just wonder how many more slip-ups you can have in a weekend and lose the ability to maybe host a super regional or maybe even a regional, depending on what happens across the country.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I saw Matt Goodhart tweet after the Georgia series. It was like, people forget that 2018 team that was 1 out away from winning it all didn't win an SEC road series. And so, I love the former baseball players who put some perspective on social media for some fans, whether fans listen to it or not. But you got to be really careful and obviously pay attention to what's going on right now. I think some of the latest projections might have Arkansas as a 7 seed right now, which is hosting a regional and possibly a super regional. But you do have to be very careful that you just don't slip, because we've seen where teams get hot later on, and then all of a sudden a team no one was talking about is now hosting a regional, and that has to take up somebody's spot. And you don't want Arkansas' spot to get taken up because the second half of the year has been a little bit lackluster. So you got to be careful and protective with that. They got a lot of baseball to play, though. You have Texas A&M and Vandy and South Carolina on the schedule. And so I think if you just take the last remaining games that are conference games and have a winning record with what's left, you're going to be fine. But you just can't slip up.
I do wonder what the pitching rotation will look like this weekend. Now that they're expected to get Brady Tigert back, and could have him open a game. McIntyre's been hot and cold, a little more colder of late. Hagen Smith maybe goes back in the rotation. I don't know. The one thing I do know is Hunter Holland will probably start Thursday. After that, I'm not sure at all.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is. And you know what? You might ask Dave, and he might not know either right now. He's just kind of feeling it out and seeing what his gut tells him when he wakes up in the morning. But we know Hunter Holland's going to go on Thursday. We also know with Hunter, most of the time, you get through the first inning that's a little rocky, and we're good to go. But you would love just some stability there. And you really want to see McIntyre get it going. It was around this time of the year when he got it going, and we really saw him take that big step in the postseason and towards the end of the regular season. Can he kind of get back to that form and maybe not feel the pressure of being a starter right from the beginning? Maybe there was just some unnecessary pressure he had on himself to be perfect and great. Go out there and just pitch baseball and do what we've seen you do last year. And maybe he can kind of start getting comfortable a little bit again. I would love to see Hagen Smith back there as a starter as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if Brady Tygart is back, and I know they're just being really cautious with him because you want him 100% good to go when he does come back. You don't want to restrain anything that's going on with Brady. But to see him out there, but they've got to have some other guys come in and step up too. Ben Bybee. Could you get Ben Bybee out there to start on Sunday, and then you bring Brady Tygart in? You don't know, but it's a job that I'm happy I am not Matt Hobbs at the moment, and I think a lot of people feel the same way.
Yeah, listen, I think they'll be all right. I think they'll figure it out. So now, getting to a little NFL news. Now, you're a Miami Dolphins fan. Is that correct?
You know it.
And so with that division, the Jets just got Aaron Rodgers. What are your thoughts? And then who are you looking for the Dolphins to take in the draft?
Ooh, so Aaron Rodgers coming to the AFC East is a little terrifying because we just got rid of Tom Brady.
That
I thought we
tough,
were
yeah.
Good, right? I thought we were okay. You get rid of Tom Brady, who I had to deal with for way too long. Then Josh Allen decides, oh, look at me, I'm going to be a superstar, which I hate the Bills, so that's not very fun. And usually the Jets are always a team that's like, oh, we can win that game because they're the Jets, and you just can't feel that way anymore. So that's just not really great. Not looking forward to that, and we'll see how Tua does. I mean, Tua's coming back, and obviously had the concussion issues last year. So I would love for them eventually down in this draft to get a backup QB. I want them to get a QB out of this draft. That would be really nice. That would make me feel a little bit more secure. And then they really need some guys like in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
So, Byron Jones retired. And getting some fresh speed back there. I hated it when we traded Micah Fitzpatrick to the Steelers because I was super pumped about getting him. And we just added Jalen Ramsey. So get a guy out there to kind of complement him too. We have Xavier Howard. So I'm pumped. I always love this time of the year watching Arkansas guys get drafted. Personally, my Florida State guys get drafted and then see what the Dolphins do.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking to see, that's why they kind of jump up. Some of these teams taking one of these quarterbacks, take a flyer on the quarterbacks late in the first round. You see more of them go because they get that extra year on their contract. But then also Drew Sanders, then a couple of the other Razorbacks to see where they go. I do think there's 2 or 3 of these guys that will be on an NFL roster next year.
Yeah, I think so. I think after Drew, I think it'll be Ricky Stromberg. And then you might see Dalton Wagner go off the table. But honestly, if I have to be real, I think a steal in this draft might be Matt Landers because we know that he's got the speed and he's got the talent. And if he goes to the right team, I think he could be a guy that's going to surprise us in a couple of years and be like, wow, he is excelling in the NFL. And so I would really love to see if he lands somewhere because he's projected right now, I think, 5th, 6th round. So we'll see.
Yeah, he is a speed guy. I'm pulling for him. He could be one of those guys that can play special teams as far as being an outside gunner, being able to go make tackles. So
good showing at the combine, a really good showing, especially with his speed.
Yeah.
Man, he came on in the second half last year. He was their most productive.
Yeah, and he even mentioned during Pro Day, he decided to play in the bowl game, and a lot of those guys did not. And he said, that was my opportunity. It showed loyalty for me that, hey, I'm with my guys. I'm playing this game. But he had a phenomenal game because, Jaden Hazelwood did not play. And he really, I think, helped his draft stock by playing in that game.
Alyssa, have you been following any of this Colorado nonsense and Coach Dion? Because it's kind of, I can't keep up.
Oh, my gosh, it's wild. He might have 25 players on this team. I guess it's surprising, but it isn't. If you just know Dion, like him just telling guys like, you ain't gonna be here anymore, get in the portal, like that's Dion. That's kind of always how he has been, because he just is going to be real with people. But then you also have to understand that, like, there are ways of going about being honest and open with your players and not feeling so disconnected. And so I don't know how it's going to be. That might have worked at Jackson State because it was Jackson State and they were flying under the radar a little bit. But now being at a D1 school, it's going to be a little bit more public when you start getting rid of all these guys. And then who are you going to go get? And it seems like it's a mess right now. What was it, 14 guys in the portal on Monday or something?
Yeah, that's just what you've hit on. Like, I think he understood taking the job at Colorado that this is a risk for his brand and for him as a coach and his career. But I don't think he viewed having 25 players on April the 26th. I don't think that was part of the equation. I think he expected to get rid of a lot of guys. I don't think he thought he'd have, barely enough players to field a college baseball team.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really makes you kind of scratch your head a little bit because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like there is a business part of this that we've seen that the transfer portal has really shined a light on, but there's also a human aspect of it, and there's a disconnect with those two things right now going on in Colorado.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of disconnect, this whole, Pirates have the best record in the National League, and then they meet reality yesterday with a good team, a good franchise, and the Dodgers coming in and scoring 3 in the 8th inning and ending the 7-game losing streak. And just over 10,000 people were there, so I don't think, to me, and maybe the weather wasn't great, but I think Pirates fans still are just like, you know what, maybe. I knew something like that would happen. I correctly predicted the end of Tampa Bay's winning streak. I correctly predicted the end of the Pirates' winning streak. It's all a matter of who you play. The Dodgers are good, and the Reds and whoever the Pirates played before that are not.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because I needed a pick-me-up. I needed a pep talk with the Dodgers, so that's been fun. And I've appreciated the optimism a little bit. I'm still on the fence. I'm back and forth. I'm too wishy-washy.
I get it. It's okay, and I don't know what happens next for them, but it's like my old boss, Bill Valentine, used to call the bad traveler teams that I worked for. It's what the Pirates are. They're Dr. Pirates. They make sick teams well again, so they're helping the Dodgers out just as I expected they would.
What do they say? This too shall pass.
Yeah, that will. Got to ask about women's basketball. You saw Sasha Goforth returning to the team. What a huge pickup. I mean, it's a pickup, but it's not a pickup because she was still sort of part of the team last year. Softens the blow of seeing Riley Langerman sign with Oklahoma State yesterday, and we're still waiting to find out where Erin Barnum is signed. I thought by now she might have been picked up.
Yeah, I am surprised that she hasn't made that announcement and gone somewhere because of how quickly she entered the portal. It felt like she had a destination in mind, but maybe some things didn't work out. We don't know. But, yeah, that's huge with Foster. And like you said, she's been around the program. She was always there with the scholarship and an open door to come back. Mike Neighbors would always say, we're just waiting for her to tell us. It was, no, we need an answer. You need to tell us what to do. You need to tell us what you're going to do. We need it. There was no pressure on Sasha. It was, we're here when you're ready to come back. And that's what she needed. And she needed to be able to have a place to come back to, but first take care of herself. And I think that was so important for her to be able to take care of herself, get things in line so she could come back and play basketball again. And for her to be able to come back and play, I hope this turns out to be a really happy ending to a story. What I hope doesn't happen is she tries to come back and it doesn't really work. I'm happy she's trying anyway, but I really hope that this is a happy ending to her story because it started so well, and then all of these illness issues started to pop up that she was just having a lot of trouble with, and now you're hoping things have solved themselves. Really cool.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.